Sarah Mitchell was a careful person. For 15 years, she deposited her paycheck every month into the same bank account, never missed a payment, never overspent. She had $47,000 saved for her daughter's college fund. On the morning of March 28, 2013, in Nicosia, Cyprus, Sarah walked to the ATM like she did every Friday. The screen blinked. Transaction denied. She tried again. Denied. She checked her phone. The banking app wouldn't load. That's when she saw the crowd gathering outside the bank branch. Dozens of people, some crying, some shouting, all trying to get answers. By noon, Sarah learned the truth. Her government had made a deal with the European Union. To save the banks, they were taking money directly from people's accounts. Not a loan, not a fee, a seizure. Accounts over 100,000 euros would lose nearly half their value overnight. Sarah's account was smaller, but it didn't matter. The banks were frozen. She couldn't access a single euro. Her daughter's college fund, 15 years of sacrifice and discipline, was now trapped behind locked doors and political negotiations she didn't understand. Sarah Mitchell is not a fictional character invented for this story. She's a real person, and what happened to her has happened to millions of people across the world, in countries that thought they were safe, in systems that promised security. And the terrifying truth is, it could happen tomorrow in your city, to your account, to the money you think is safely tucked away. This is the story of what really happens when banks shut down, not in some distant crisis you read about in history books, but in modern nations in our lifetimes, to people who did everything right. Look around your life right now. Your rent or mortgage payment, your grocery budget, your car payment, your kids' school fees, all of it depends on one fundamental assumption, that when you need your money, it will be there. You can swipe a card, transfer funds, withdraw cash. The system works, except when it doesn't. And when it doesn't, everything collapses faster than you can imagine. Maria Rodriguez in Buenos Aires learned this in December 2001. She was a nurse, working double shifts to save for her mother's medical treatment. She had $12,000 in her account, not pesos, dollars. She'd specifically saved in dollars to protect against inflation. Then the Argentine government announced the corralito, the little fence. Banks were limiting withdrawals to 250 pesos per week. And here's the betrayal that broke her. The government forcibly converted her dollar savings into pesos at an artificial exchange rate. Overnight, her $12,000 became worth $6,000. Her mother's treatment, she couldn't afford it anymore. 15 years of night shifts, of skipping meals to save, of saying no to her children so she could build a safety net. Gone. Not because she was reckless, not because she made bad investments, but because when the system needed money to save itself, it took hers. Or take Ahmad Hassan, a small business owner in Beirut. He ran a successful printing company, employed 8 people, had saved $85,000 to expand and buy new equipment. In October 2019, Lebanese banks started limiting withdrawals, first to a few $100s a week, then less. Ahmed couldn't pay his employees, couldn't buy paper and ink, couldn't pay rent. His life's work, built over 20 years, started crumbling not because of anything he did wrong, but because the banking system locked him out of his own money. He went to the bank with his documents, his account statements, proof that this was his money. The teller, someone he'd known for years, just shook her head. "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Those are the rules now." Ahmed did something that shocked Lebanon, but that made perfect sense when you understand desperation. He walked into his bank with a rifle. He didn't want to rob it. He wanted to make a withdrawal, his own money, for his daughter's cancer treatment. The standoff made international news, and while people debated his methods, nobody could deny the brutal truth. A man had to threaten violence just to access his own savings to save his child's life. These aren't distant historical events from the Great Depression. Maria's crisis was 2001. Ahmed's was 2019. Sarah's was 2013. These are our lifetimes, our world, and the pattern is always the same. The banks get in trouble, the government steps in, and the people who did everything right, who saved carefully and planned responsibly, they're the ones who pay the price. You might be thinking, but that's Argentina, Cyprus, Lebanon, unstable places. That could never happen here. That's exactly what they thought. In Argentina in the 1990s, people called Buenos Aires the Paris of South America, a sophisticated modern economy. In Cyprus, they were part of the European Union, using the euro, protected by the same institutions that protect Germany and France. In Lebanon, Beirut was called the Switzerland of the Middle East, a banking hub, a place where money was supposed to be safe. They all thought it could never happen to them, until the day it did. Here's what most people don't understand about how banks actually work. When you deposit money, you think of it like a coat check. You hand over your coat, you get a ticket, and whenever you want your coat back, you show the ticket and they return it. That's not how banks work. When you deposit $1,000, the bank doesn't put it in a vault with your name on it. They keep maybe $50 in reserve. The other $950, they lend it it out, to someone buying a house, to a business expanding, to the government selling bonds. That 950 becomes someone else's deposit, which means the bank can lend out 855 of it, which becomes another deposit, which gets lent again. Out of your original $1,000, the banking system creates $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in circulating money. It's brilliant. It's how economies grow. It's also how banks fail. Because if you and enough other people show up asking for your original $1,000 at the same time, the bank doesn't have it. They have $50 and a bunch of loans they can't immediately collect. The system works on one assumption, that not everyone will want their money at the same time. The moment that assumption breaks, everything collapses. This is why confidence is everything. The system isn't held together by vaults full of cash. It's held together by belief, by trust, by the collective agreement that tomorrow will work like today. And when that belief cracks even just a little, the countdown begins. Greece, 2015. Alexis Papadopoulos was a retired teacher. He'd saved his whole life, had about 40,000 euros for retirement. When rumors started that Greece might leave the euro, people got nervous. Lines formed at ATMs, not because anything had actually happened yet, but because people were afraid it might. The Greek government, terrified of a bank run, imposed capital controls, 60 euros per day. That's all you could withdraw. Alexis stood in line in the blazing July heat for 3 hours to get his 60 euros. The next day, he did it again. An educated man, a respected teacher, reduced to queuing like a refugee in his own country to access his own money in dribbles. His retirement plans postponed indefinitely. His dignity shattered. His trust in the system destroyed forever. And it's not just faraway places. The United States, March 1933. The Great Depression was crushing America. Banks were failing by the hundreds. People were panicking, rushing to withdraw their savings before their bank became the next to collapse. President Franklin Roosevelt made a decision that would be unthinkable today, except it's not unthinkable because it could absolutely happen again. He declared a bank holiday. Every single bank in America closed, not for a day, for 4 days, but in some places it stretched to a week, even longer. Imagine that. You wake up in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and every bank is shuttered. You can't get cash. Businesses can't make payroll. Stores can't pay suppliers. The entire economy just stops. Roosevelt sold it as a cooling off period, a chance to inspect banks and restore confidence. And maybe it worked. Maybe it prevented total collapse. But for the millions of Americans who couldn't pay rent that week, couldn't buy food, couldn't access money they had earned and saved, it was a nightmare. And it taught an entire generation a lesson they never forgot. The system will protect itself first. You come second. The truly disturbing part is how governments and banks are on the same team. They need each other. Banks need governments to license them, to guarantee deposits, to bail them out when things go wrong. Governments need banks to buy their bonds, to finance deficits, to channel credit through the economy. So when crisis hits, they close ranks. They protect each other. And the depositor, the ordinary person who just wants access to their own money, becomes collateral damage. Look at how deposit insurance really works. In America, the FDIC insures accounts up to $250,000. Sounds reassuring, right? Your money is protected, but ask yourself this. If every depositor in America tried to claim that insurance tomorrow, would the money actually be there? No. The FDIC's fund is a tiny fraction of total deposits. Its real power isn't financial. It's psychological. It's a promise designed to keep you calm, to keep you from panicking, to keep you believing the system is solid. And most of the time, it works. Most of the time, you don't need the insurance. But in a real crisis, when millions of people try to claim it simultaneously, you discover it was never meant to cover everyone. It was meant to cover enough people to prevent panic. Now think about how digital everything has become. 20 years ago, you could stuff cash under your mattress, keep gold coins in a safe, hold physical stock certificates. Today, your wealth is numbers on a screen. Your paycheck is a digital transfer. Your savings are entries in a database. Your investments are pixels on an app. What happens when the app goes down? When the bank's server fails? When your account gets frozen? Not because you did anything wrong, but because of some automated fraud detection algorithm or a government order you never saw coming. In Lebanon, when the banks froze, people couldn't wire money abroad. Factories couldn't import raw materials. Hospitals couldn't pay for medicine. Not because the money didn't exist, but because the digital infrastructure that represented that money was shut off. You can't eat a bank balance. You can't pay rent with a number on a screen. If you can't access it, it might as well not exist. And the ripple effects are catastrophic. When Sarah in Cyprus couldn't access her money, she couldn't pay her daughter's tuition. The school, not receiving payments from dozens of families, couldn't pay teachers. Teachers couldn't buy groceries. Grocery stores couldn't couldn't pay suppliers. Suppliers couldn't pay their workers. A single freeze at the banking level cascades through the entire economy like dominoes falling. In Argentina during the Corralito, middle-class families who had never missed a payment in their lives started bartering, trading services for goods, a haircut for a bag of rice, a car repair for medical treatment. Society didn't collapse into Mad Max chaos, but it regressed. People found workarounds, black markets, informal economies. But every step backward was a loss of dignity, security, and trust. So what do? You can't just pull all your money out and hide it in your house. That's how you lose everything to a fire or a burglary. You can't opt out of the banking system entirely and still function in modern society. But you can be smarter. You can be more resilient. You can stop pretending the system is invincible. Diversification isn't just an investment strategy. It's survival. Don't keep everything in one institution. Don't keep everything in one form. Cash for emergencies. Real assets that hold value. Real estate, gold, things that exist outside the digital system. Accounts in more than one country if you can. It sounds paranoid until you talk to Maria in Buenos Aires, Ahmed in Beirut, Sarah in Cyprus. They'll tell you paranoia is just preparation that you mock until you need it. And beyond personal preparation, we need to demand accountability. When banks fail, executives walk away with bonuses. When governments impose capital controls, politicians don't miss their salaries. The burden always falls on ordinary people. We accept this because we think we have no choice. But we do. We can demand transparency. We can demand that deposit insurance is real, not just psychological theater. We can demand that banks that take deposits maintain real reserves, not the fictional fractions they currently hold. We can demand that when systems fail, the people who caused the failure pay the price, not the people who trusted them. Hardest truth to accept is how fast everything can change. Sarah went to bed on March 27, 2013 with her daughter's college fund secure. She woke up on March 28th and it was gone, not stolen by criminals, taken by her own government to save banks she'd never done business with. One day you have stability, the next day you have chaos, and every single person who's lived through a banking crisis will tell you the same thing. They never saw it coming. The signs were there. The debt, the instability, the political dysfunction. But it always felt manageable until the day it wasn't. This isn't about living in fear. It's about living with eyes open. The financial system is not your friend. It's a tool. And like any tool, it works until it breaks. When it breaks, the people running it will save the tool, not the people using it. History proves this. Argentina proves this. Cyprus proves this. Lebanon proves this. Even America in 1933 proves this. The pattern is clear. The only question is whether you'll recognize it before it's too late. Sarah's daughter never went to that university. Maria's mother never got that treatment. Ahmed's business never recovered. They did everything right, and they lost everything anyway. Not because they failed, but because the system failed them. And when it did, there was no one to catch them. So tonight, when you check your bank balance on your phone and see those numbers, ask yourself a question. If tomorrow morning those numbers disappeared, if the app wouldn't load, if the bank was closed, what would you do? How long could you survive? What do you actually own versus what you just think you own? Because somewhere tonight, in a country that thinks it's stable, in a city that thinks it's safe, someone is going to bed with their savings secure. And tomorrow, they're going to wake up to a nightmare. The only difference between you and them might just be luck and timing, and whether you prepared for a day you hoped would never come. The system will tell you you're safe. History says otherwise. The choice of who to believe is yours.